Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So on today's episode, I've got an Omega level commander for you with Hylda of the Icy Crown. Yeah, this is a very powerful commander. A 3/4 human warlock for 2 white and 8 blue. Whenever you tap an untapped creature an opponent controls, you may pay 1. When you do, choose 1. Create a 4/4 white and blue elemental creature token, put a counter on each creature you control, or scry to draw a card. So all great options. Now, yes, it does cost a mana per creature you're tapping, but hey, you got some really good value out of that. Again, a 4/4 for a single mana, lovely. Getting a counter on every single creature you control, especially since that pairs so with that first one, incredible. And also, hey, yeah, you know what? If you need to dig deeper for some good cards, let's draw some cards in. Actually, we've got some ways to make that even better. But yeah, this is the type of commander that, yeah, you can build it a little friendlier, or you can just go all in and say, hey, you know what? I've got some disgusting things to do. I've got some crazy things to do. I've got ways to shut down my opponents and also make a massive army that takes control of the game and takes them out. So yeah, this is a crazy good commander. Definitely worthy of the title of Omega level if built in the right way. And actually, it's one that doesn't have to break the bank. It's just $20.30 core to Moxfield for this deck. Now, that does include shipping or basic lands, but you might already have those, regardless if you are interested in this crazy good commander. And again, this commander is $4.20. The rest of the deck is not very expensive at all. Again, total cost of $20. Make sure you check out that deck list link in the description below. Now, with all that said, let's jump into the tactics. First up, let's start small, and we're going to start things off with Wayfarer's Bauble. Pay 2 taps, sacrifice, get a basic land, and a play tapped. Next up, let's ramp for the Zoria's Signet. Yeah, I mean, just signets are great. You know that. Anyways, moving on, we got Felwar's Stone. It can tap for either of our colors most of the time, depending on our opponent's land situation. Then we also have Fractured Power Stone. Yeah, this just taps for a colorless, but still enters battlefield tapped, can use that mana right away. And again, we've got plenty of ways to fix our mana. We're just in 2 colors. We are fine. Next up, Guardian Idol. Hey, you know what's kind of fun about this one? It does enter battlefield tapped. It taps for a colorless. It's still very efficient, very effective. We can also turn into a 2/2, and keep in mind, when it is a creature, we can get those counters on this when it is a creature, and it can actually become a decent threat. Next up, Marble Diamond enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a white, and then we're also running, of course, Sky Diamond enters battlefield tapped, can tap for a blue. Next up, Mindstone. Taps for a colorless, can pay 1 tap and sacrifice to draw a card if you need to replace this. Obsidian Obelisk enters battlefield tapped, can actually help us cast multicolored spells or just tap for a colorless as well. Prismatic Lens, tap for a colorless, so we're going to help filter our mana if we actually need to. Yeah, there's a lot of great ramp in this deck. But we're actually not done with ramping just yet, because again, our commander's trigger, well, it does require us mana to have, and we want to make sure we have mana to be able to activate that just as much as we can. And there's some crazy ways that we can activate this in a certain amount of time. So yeah, let's add some more mana rocks into the deck. Everflowing Chalice, a fantastically flexible one. At 2 mana, it taps for 1. 4 mana, it taps for 2, etc., etc., etc. Coalition Relic can tap for 1, or we can put a charge counter on it, and kind of like a delayed mana for us, essentially. Basically, the next turn it's going to be able to tap for 2 in a way. Then we've got Ornamorn Shaku. This one can actually, hey, if we tap our commander, yeah, we can actually untap this. So this can tap for 2 mana technically on a turn as well. Victory Chimes, an incredible card in this deck. Such a good mana rock. Cost 3, taps for 1. Also, hey, during each other player's untap step, we get to untap it. So again, with our commander's ability, with our commander's trigger, we can keep paying for it with this again and again and again, basically 4 times, with each trip around the table. We've got ways to tap creatures. Next up, Worn Power Stone, very efficient, very effective. Cost 3, enters battlefield tap, taps for 2. Hedron Archive, cost 4, taps for half that amount. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice, draw 2. Sistace Ring, basically exact same thing, but without that draw. Urgolem's Eye, exact same thing as that. Stone Speaker Crystal, yeah, it's going to cost 4, it's going to tap for 2. Pay 2 tap, sacrifice. Oh, I'm sorry, reanimation players. I'm sorry, graveyard players. Let's get rid of your graveyards. And we also get to draw a card as well. And then finally, Dreamstone Hedron, the big boy of artifacts, of mana rocks. Cost 6, taps for 3. Pay 3 tap, sacrifice, draw 3 cards. Now, to illustrate why we want a lot of mana, well, let's talk about the Golden Pig of this deck, which is the #1 card of our 99, and this is a brutal one. Opposition. Enchantment for 2 blue. Tap an untapped creature you control, tap target artifact creature, or land. This is crazy good with this commander, and again, a reason why we want a lot of mana, because basically this is like, okay, hey, just picture this scenario. We tap our commander to tap down one of our opponent's creatures, whatever creature you want, okay, the best creature on the board that they have. Cool. Tap it down. Commander triggers. Pay 1 mana. Make a 4/4. Guess what? We can tap that right away because, again, it's the enchantment that says, hey, tap it on tap creature. It's not say like creatures have tap on tap. You know what I mean. Anyways, basically we just keep tapping our new creatures that we're making, tapping down all the creatures for the amount of mana that we have, and making a massive army in the process. This is a crazy good card. One that is absurd. One that essentially says, you're not going to be able to stop me if I have this out, because essentially I'm going to build an army big enough to tap down all the creatures and basically double my army size each time. And then also, hey, at a certain point, I can tap down artifacts and lands too. And not that I recommend winning in that fashion, but after a certain point, when you've got like 40 4/4s in play, yeah, let's tap down their artifacts and their lands on their turn so they can't cast anything, and then, yeah, we'll just swing through and take them out as well. See, opposition, a crazy good, crazy brutal card, and one that definitely turns this commander into an Omega level commander. Moving on, though, we've got some other great cards in tech number 4, Value Town, that, well, Quartz Reed Denizen can work in a similar way. A 2/2 human soldier for 2 and a white. Whenever another white creature enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature an opponent controls. My goodness, is this good? Again, in a very similar way. Let's say we've got a way to tap down opponent's creature. Cool, we pay 1. We are making a blue and white elemental. Cool, that ETBs. All of a sudden, we get this trigger. We tap down another creature, and another creature, and another creature, and all of a sudden, again, every single time we just have to pay a single mana to make a 4/4 again and again and again. Yeah, this can be quite brutal. Not quite opposition brutal, but very brutal itself. Next up, Palliation Accord. Such a janky card, but I love it. Enchantment for 3, white and a blue. Whenever a creature an opponent controls comes tapped, you get a shield counter on this. I think they changed it to Palliation counter because they're shield counters now. Regardless, remove that Palliation counter from it. All of a sudden, prevent 1 damage to be dealt to you this turn. That might not seem like a lot, but again, for a deck that is going to be tapping down creatures, and also, hey, if your opponents have any abilities for their creatures that they tap themselves, or if they attack with creatures that don't have vigilance, yeah, there's just going to be a lot of tapping of creatures. You're going to get an absurd amount of counters on this, and all of a sudden, your opponents are going to be like, oh, okay, well, I could swing at that player, but they've got like 30 counters on Palliation Accord, and they'll just completely negate my entire attack. So that's kind of pointless. So yeah, this is a crazy good card that protects you in a lot of ways. Moving on, speaking of crazy good, and definitely another contender for the golden pick of this deck, Elegant Crossroads Augur, a 5/6 Sphinx with flying that costs 6 mana. If you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. This turns your commander's trigger into, instead of scry to draw a card, which is already good, again, card selection and card advantage, to just straight up card advantage. This is just, you know what, Ancestral Recall each time, essentially, with your commander's trigger. Pay 1 mana, draw 3. Absolutely crazy. Yeah, you can do some pretty absurd things with this kind of a deck. Moving on, Cap Show Kite Fins, a 3/3 fish with flying that says whenever it and other creatures battlefield under control, tap target creature opponent controls. This one is very, very, very similar to Quartz Reed Denizen, but again, without that requirement being a white creature, regardless, works in a very similar way. Tap down your opponent's creatures quite easily, again and again and again. Moving on, Tolarian Kraken, a 4/6 that says whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1. When you do, you may tap or untap target creature. Yes, please. This is just, again, a way to actually even work with your commander's other trigger. I mean, same trigger, but different choice. Instead of putting a creature into play, you just choose scry to draw a card. Cool. Pay an extra 1. All of a sudden, you get to tap down another creature and do it again and again and again. It does cost twice as much, but still, yeah, this has extra flexibility as well to untap creatures too when you need to. A really good card in this deck. Moving on, let's talk about tech number 5, one time we're going to tap down creatures. Well, one time and more than one creature with Blesser Squall, an instant for a single blue mana. Tap target creature you don't control. Okay, just one time with that, but if we overload it for just 3 more mana, all of a sudden we tap down every single creature our opponents control. That is massive, and something that I didn't kind of mention earlier is that, yeah, tapping down your opponent's creatures not only just benefits you with your commander's trigger, but also, yeah, you're going to be making an army, which you can, of course, make even larger. And then also, hey, tap down your opponent's creatures, and you just get them all through. Your creatures are going to go through and take out your opponents. A crazy good card. Yeah, 4 mana, and then, you know what, just pay however much you can to make 4/4s, or counter creatures, or draw cards. You know what I mean. Moving on, Deluge. This one, instant for 2 and a blue, tap all creatures without flying. Yeah, I mean, be careful when you're using this, but also, yeah, this is a great card to essentially say, let's just tap down the majority of creatures, or basically all creatures, just for 3 mana instant speed. Moving on. Code of Cold, sorcery for 3 and a blue, roll a d20. 1 through 9, tap all creatures' opponent's control. That's already good. That's already just a good effect. But also, hey, 10 through 19, tap all creatures' opponent's control. They don't untap their controller's X untap step. So you can potentially say, hey, all your creatures are not untapping. Also, if you roll a 20, tap all creatures' opponent's control. They don't tap their controller's X untap step. And until your next turn, creatures' opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped. Yeah, you basically just say, let's just negate your turn with your creatures coming into play. You're just all going to stay tapped down. Regardless, you got a lot of value you can get out of a card like this. Moving on, speaking of value, Ensnare. Instant for 3 and a blue. They return 2 islands you control of his own hand instead of paying its cost. Tap all creatures. So basically, if you just bounce 2 islands back to your hand, cool. You get to cast this for free and utilize all that juicy mana instead on your commander's trigger. Moving on, Regnus Sanction, a sorcery for 4 mana. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friendly player is going to get a +1 counter on each creature they control. How lovely. Each foe chooses 1 untapped creature they control, then taps the rest. Everything else is going to be tapped. Every single player, is going to be able to get, your ire, because, they are going to be your foes. And you are going to get counters on your creatures, they'll get bigger, and your opponent's creatures are going to get tapped down, except for 1. Next up, Sleep. This can really upset one player. Tap all creatures target player controls. Those creatures don't tap, and the creatures actually tap step. Basically, again, 4 mana, targeted, saying, you know what? I don't like you. Let's tap down those creatures. Let's have other players swing at you. Let's take you out and also get a lot of value out of that. Tempest Caller is going to tap down all creatures target opponent controls when it ETBs, so that can be fun as well. Turnabout can be pretty flexible. Instant. Choose artifact, creature, or land. Tap all untap permanents of the chosen type that player controls, or untap all permanents of that type. So basically, again, this can be pretty flexible. Hey, you know what? Let's tap down all of your creatures so that I can get all those triggers for my commander. Or, you know what? I've got a lot of great mana rocks in play. Let's untap my own artifacts so I can just, get even more mana. Whatever you need to do, it's a great flexible card. Moving on, Bond of Discipline. Source for 5 mana. Tap all creatures opponent's control. Creature control gain lifelink until end turn. Yeah, again, you can very easily make a massive army quite quickly with this commander, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, cool, yeah, I've got like 10 4/4s in play, it's 40 damage, I'll just gain 40 life, why not? And also take out players in the meantime. Moving on, Monk, 3/2, Gift the Monk with Flash and Flying, enters the battlefield, tap all creatures you don't control. So again, every single one of your opponent's creatures are getting tapped down. Illithid Harvester, this is brutally good. First of all, Plant Tadpoles is a source for X blue. Tap X creatures they don't tap to control X on tap steps. Quite nice. But more importantly, when this enters the battlefield, turn any number of target tap non-token creatures face down. They're 2/2s. So all of a sudden, yeah, we're just going to say, you know what, your best creatures, yeah, I can very easily tap down them in many, many ways, including this. And now all of a sudden, they are, well, not useless, but not good. And then finally, got Subjugator Angel. Enters the battlefield, tap all creatures opponent's control. So again, we got so many ways to tap down our opponent's creatures. Lots of different ways to take value out of these cards. Let's move on to tactic number 6, Tap Dance, because we've got some repeatable tap effects, including a very small one that can be very, very effective throughout the game. A 1/1 Spirit with Topple for just a single mana. It's a flyer. Enters the battlefield, tap target creature opponent controls. Lovely. More importantly, though, Delirium at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard, tap target creature that player controls. So yeah, once you meet that requirement, they are all going to be in big trouble. Free tapping on every single opponent's upkeep. What's not to love about that? Moving on, Hammers Amaradin, 3/3 Dwarf Cleric with Myriad. So when you attack, well, the other 2 players are also going to get a taste of this as well. 2 copies are going to come into play. Swing the other ones. Whenever it attacks for each opponent, tap up to 1 target creature that player controls. So have fun doing that. Moving on, Citadel Siege, an enchantment for 4 mana. Enters the battlefield, choose Cons or Dragons. Cons is nice. At the beginning of combat, your turn, you get 2 counters on target creature you control. More likely, though, you're going to choose Dragons. Beginning of combat, each one's turn, you tap a creature they control. So yeah, a free tap throughout the game. Lovely. Next up, Elite Scale Guard. Enters the battlefield, bolster 2. Sure. Whenever creature control they counter on it attacks, tap target creature defending player controls. This is just very funny because it's like, oh yeah, I can very easily get a counter on my creatures. Very, very easily actually. Just with my commander's trigger, and all of a sudden, yeah, when they swing, they tap down, they get through, I get my commander's trigger. Have fun. Next up, Timon Youthful Geist, 3/4. Which says at the beginning of each combat, tap up to 1 target creature. So yeah, just free taps throughout the game once it's in play. Then there's Abish and Cephalid Empire. Oh my goodness, 3/3. Tap it on tap Cephalid to control tap target permanent. This is a Cephalid, obviously. Tap it, tap something else. Also, hey, pay blue. Tap all creatures without flying. A repeatable mass tap effect. What's not to love about that? Oh my goodness. Finally, Junkwinder though. Hey, yeah, you weren't looking to do anything with those creatures ever again, were you? It has affinity for tokens, first of all, so you're basically going to cast this 5/6 for just 2 mana again. Blue. Whenever a token enters battlefield under control, tap target non-land opponent controls. Doesn't have tap to controller's X on tap step. This is brutal. This is effective. This is incredible. Your opponents won't have creatures to untap ever again. That's we want to do tactic number 7, not tapped out, because we got plenty of ways to take advantage of, well, our opponent's tap creatures and, yeah, drawing a good amount of cards. But still, like, borrowing 100,000 arrows, yeah, you're not going to be drawing 100,000 cards, but could you draw 20 cards with this? Quite easily, yes. Draw a card for each tap creature opponent controls. Yeah, there you go. If they've got a good amount of creatures in play, cool. Let's just tap it down with one of our many tap effects, and all of a sudden, draw an absurd amount of cards. Next up, Theft of Dreams. Very similar. For each tap creature target opponent controls, draw a card. Yeah, another great way to do that as well. Then how about, a new one? Hylda's Crown of Winter. Hylda can't go anywhere without the crown, right? Legendary artifact for 3. Pay 1, tap target creature. Ability cost 1 less to activate during your turn. Cool. Basically, again, a repeatable way to actually get value out of this. Also, hey, when you're done with that value, pay 3 sacrifice to draw a card for each tap creature opponent's control. That could be an absurd amount. Again, just think like Bluster Squall plus this equals draw. Cards equal number of creatures opponents control. Absolutely crazy. Next up, Verity Circle. My goodness. Enchantment for 3 mana. Whenever a creature opponent controls comes tapped, if it wasn't declared as an attacker, you may draw a card. That's what this deck does. That's what this deck does. All of a sudden, we're just like, okay, opposition, tap down all your creatures with my creatures. I'll draw 20 cards. Cool. Also, hey, pay 4 in a blue if you want to. Tap a creature offline. Why not? Finally, we got Charade of Numbing Depths. 2/3. Enters battlefield. Tap target creature opponent controls. Put a stun counter on it. Lovely. Whenever you tap one or more untapped creatures opponent control, draw a card. Triggers only once each turn. So this one does have a max amount of cards to draw once per turn. But still, hey, you know what? If you tap an opponent's creature with each turn, you know what you're going to be doing? Drawing 4 cards with each trip on the table. And that is quite a good deal. But that's when we do tactic number 8, tapped out, because we've got some ways to mess with our opponents outside of just tapping down their creatures. Let's destroy things. Generous gift. Destroy target permanent controller gets a 3/3 elephant. Lovely. Moving on, Crush Contraband. Choose one or both. Exile an artifact. Exile an enchantment. Yeah, you're probably going to choose both. Then there's Time of Ice. Speaking of enchantments, this saga is great. 1 and 2 are tap a creature opponent controls. Does thing and tap as long as you control this. And the third one is return all tap creatures owner's hands. Yeah, again, we've got an absurd amount of ways to tap down all of our opponent's creatures. This can be a one-sided board wipe very easily. Next up, Aether Gale. Very efficient, very effective. 5 mana, bounce 6 non-land permanents. Cleansing Nova. Very flexible. Choose 1 to draw creatures, draw artifacts, or enchantments. Perplexing Test. This one can be very one-sided for us. Return all creature tokens, or return all non-token creatures, I should say, to their hands. Again, basically, hey, yeah, I've got this giant army of 4/4s that are tokens. Let's bounce every regular creature back to the hand for 5 mana. Lovely. Next up, Sunblast Angel. Enters the battlefield to destroy tap creatures. Again, we've got plenty of ways to tap down opponent's creatures and say, this is going to be a very one-sided board wipe. Speaking of which, Hour of Reckoning Convoke. So our many elementals can help us cast this. Basically, just cast this for free. Destroy all non-token creatures. Yeah, very one-sided indeed. Now that's when we do tactic number 9, finish it, because, well, I mean, we've got plenty of ways to finish our opponents, right? Again, we've got ways to make a massive army in absolutely no time. We've got ways to tap down opponent's creatures to get them through. But also, hey, you know what? Intangible Virtue, a great card enchantment for 1 and a white. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1 in vigilance. Yeah, this is crazy good. Just think about this scenario, okay? Think about this scenario. We've got opposition in play, okay? Let's just say that we got opposition in play. We swing with our 5/5 elementals, because they got their creature tokens, they get +1 in their vigilance. They stay untapped when they swing. They were like, oh, by the way, I'm going to tap my elementals, tap down the creatures that were going to be blocking me, and I'm coming through at you while also getting that trigger for my commander. Yeah, that's going to be great. Moving on. Speaking of vigilance, Ice Wrought Sentry. 2/3 elemental soldier with vigilance. When it attacks, you can pay 1 in blue when you do tap target creature opponent controls. That's nice. Just a nice additional tap effect. Most importantly, though, whenever you tap an untapped creature opponent controls, it's going to get +2/+1 until end turn. Yeah, again, just picture Bluster Squall. If your opponents have a decent amount of creatures in play, let's say like 20 creatures in total, cool. This is going to get +40, +20. They're going to be gone. One-shot KO with this all the time. Next up, Solitary Sanctuary. Enters battlefield, tap target creature opponent controls, put a stun counter on it. Lovely. Whenever you tap an untapped creature opponent controls, you get a +1 counter target creature you control. This can turn our commander into a one-shot KO, with just, again, like a Bluster Squall. Like, one Bluster Squall can just be like, okay, commander's one-shot KO. take you out. Goodbye. Finally, levitation. Again, if getting through on our opponents by just tapping other creatures wasn't enough, yeah, now we can get through even easier because all creatures control flying. So yeah, we can just get through with even untapping them sometimes. With even having to tap those creatures, we can usually get through this in a lot of scenarios, giving our creatures, our elementals flying for just 4 mana permanently. That is fantastic. Levitation's a great card. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on it in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.